The shadows beneath. The air in the dimly lit apartment felt thick with secrets, the kind that clawed at the back of one's mind and refused to be ignored. Detective Valerie Nash stood at the threshold, her gloved hand hovering over the doorknob. The call had come in late, an anonymous tip about something sinister lurking within the crumbling walls of an old townhouse on the edge of the city. As she pushed the door open, the stench of stale air and something more metallic greeted her: blood. The outline of a chair in the corner caught her attention, positioned perfectly beneath a blinking red light, a hidden camera, its lens a silent witness to untold horrors. Across the city, somewhere in a dingy motel room, Andrea Calloway sat hunched over a laptop. Her fingers trembled as she scrolled through the messages that had led her here. They know the latest. Text read. Andrea swallowed hard. She had been running for years, but the past had finally caught up. The feds were closing in, and she could no longer hide behind aliases and failed plastic surgeries. Back at the crime scene, Valerie's phone buzzed. "You need to see this," her partner, Agent Tom Larkin, spoke urgently. He sent over a list of missing persons. Names, faces, all tied to a string of premeditated attacks that led back to one thing: money. Valerie turned toward a stack of papers strewn across the table. Her eyes narrowed as she spotted a family ledger, name scrawled hastily. Calloway, she whispered. That name had been haunting them for years, the ghost in every missing persons case that never quite fit. Meanwhile, Andrea wiped sweat from her brow. She had been complicit, a willing participant in the elaborate setup orchestrated by none other than her own sister, Evelyn. Evelyn had always been ruthless, but Andrea never thought she would take it this far. People were disappearing, and the walls were closing in. Their ex-lover, Jason, had been a loose end, one that Evelyn was determined to tie up permanently. Jason had known too much. He had unearthed the truth about the operation, the fraudulent documents, the hidden accounts. Evelyn had tried to silence him with whispers of insanity, planting evidence that painted him as mentally unstable, but Jason had survived the attempt on his life. He was still out there, waiting for justice. In the heart of downtown, inside a dimly lit bar, Jason took another sip of his whiskey. He knew the feds were closing in on Andrea. He had spent years gathering proof of Evelyn's crimes, hidden cameras, financial records, death plots, everything she thought had been erased. But justice, like karma, was relentless. Back at headquarters, Valerie and Tom pieced together the puzzle. The Calloway sisters had orchestrated more than just fraud. They had manipulated lives, framed loved ones, and even plotted murders. The evidence was overwhelming, and an arrest was imminent. As dawn broke, sirens wailed through the city. Andrea, panicked and disheveled, tried to flee, but there was nowhere left to run. As she reached the rooftop, the cold steel of Valerie's gun pressed against the back of her head. "It's over, Andrea," Valerie said firmly. "No more running." Tears welled in Andrea's eyes as she whispered, "You don't understand. Evelyn, she set it all up. She wanted me to take the fall. She's still out there." As the feds hauled Andrea away, a shadow moved in the distance. Evelyn Calloway watched from the safety of a black sedan, a smirk playing on her lips. The game was far from over. But for the first time in years, Jason knew the tables had finally turned. And this time, he would make sure Evelyn didn't slip through the cracks. The past was catching up, and there was no escaping the shadows beneath.